that links directly back to like my spirituality. So having a guru in my life, having a spiritual teacher in my life, and being Jane my whole life, we have this idea that the material world is constantly going to change, and there's
Yes,
no constants in the material world, and
yes,
things are temporary. Your happiness is temporary, and things are always evolving. So even your desires, as you said it just right now, like you get one thing, you want 10 other things. You get 10 things, you want 100 other things. There's
yes,
this never ending of human desire. And that's why in spirituality and Jainism, we don't look to the material world to get fulfillment. We have to have a material world. You have to have a house, you have to live, you have to have food and stuff.
yes.
But our fulfillment can't come from external, it can only come from internal. And I
Mm-hmm.
know you study philosophy, and I know you've got a great philosophy channel on Instagram. That's how this conversation actually came about, because I love what you do there. Is that because from what I've seen, a lot of the philosophers are Western philosophers. They're not
Yeah.
really Eastern from what I've seen in literature and in education. Um, what if you have studied? What is the big differences between Western and Eastern philosophy? If you have studied it, but if you haven't studied it, what does Western philosophy say when it comes to like where does happiness really lie?
To to go about, one could say there's a division between Eastern and Western, but the division would be quite superficial.
Okay.
The uh, I personally don't have the expertise in either realm to say that, because there could, I don't know, there could be a certain branch of Christianity that holds much more tighter to a form of Buddhism,
Mm,
and there could be a form of Christianity that holds much tighter to a form of Islam. But I always think anyway that things like spirituality, things like religion, are very closely related to the individual.
mm.
If an individual is a hothead, that will manifest in their interpretation of the religion. If a
Correct.
person is generally a calm person, if a person is growing up in a poor family versus if they're growing up in a rich family, all of these circumstances reflect on these issues. But just on the point of materiality, I am personally a materialist,
Okay.
and so I have no conception of afterlife. I have no idea whether it is true or not that there is a conception or there's a notion of an afterlife afterwards. Um, but I quite stubbornly believe in the chase, essentially. And what I mean by the chase is that, even though I understand or I know that the goalpost moves, I still believe in the movement itself.
Okay.
Whereas I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
the spiritual path often advocates a form of detachment from the goalpost, understanding that stillness is where one is trying to reach. Essentially, it's a constant rotation towards oneself that one projects upon an external entity.
Yeah, I would say that's see when we say words like detachment and we say words in English, they kind of lose their original meaning. So
Yes, yes, yes.
in Gujarati we would say aparigraha or Sanskrit, and that's see the first we have to ask the question, who are we? You know, like who am I, right? And that's what from my understanding is the Western world first asked, what is the world? What is the universe? Where did
Mm-hmm,
this all begin? Whereas in the Eastern world, the first question was, who am I? Where did I
mm-hmm,
begin? Where did I start? And then you get to the place where in the Western world it goes, okay, fine, everything's material, therefore I'm material. And
mm-hmm.
so material became the fundamental of reality.
Yes, 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 yes.
Whereas in the Eastern world, we say, oh, consciousness or the soul or whatever it is, that's fundamental, and everything becomes on top of that. So those are the two different main differences that I'd say.
Yes, yes,
And therefore, I would agree with you about the chase, about the pursuit, about the seeking, because
yes, yes.
in our traditions in the East, we've been a seeking. Um, that's what we do. We don't believe, we seek.
Mm-hmm.
There's no idea of this is the ultimate, these are the tenets, these are the commandments. None of that really exists because everything's within context. So everything goes back to what are you seeking? And through your seeking, and obviously we seek this way instead of that way, we get to really experience this stillness. And because we experience the stillness, you get detached from the external. See, detachment is
Mhm.
more of a consequence than rather a pursuit. And those
But
become,
my
of
question,
course,
would be,
yeah, sure.
why?
Why?
Mm.
Because great question. That is the fundamental. Again, like I said, who are we?
Mm-hmm.
So when you get to answer that question, who am I? That's
Mm-hmm.
all we search. That's it. And when you find out who you are, and you realize that you are this thing called Atma or soul or consciousness, whatever
Yes, yes,
you
yes.
call it, and that has no body. So because you are this thing that has no body, and you are currently in a body, then if I found out today that I've had 600 mothers, right? Your experience with your mother will change because
Mm-hmm.
you've now experienced having, I've had 500 mothers this way, I'm going to have 100 more mothers this way.
Yeah.
So therefore, and it's, and
Which is a beautiful lesson on attachment,
yeah,
right?
and
And
that and that's
the
where the detachment starts to feel like, wow, I used to be a boy, I used to be a girl, I used to be an insect. This is not for a belief. This is through an experience. This is why, like even for myself, I haven't experienced any of these things. So this is not talk about from my point of view, but when you get to that level of experience, things fall away, rather
Mm.
than you having to put it down. And and again,
I like that things fall away without you having to put it down.
yeah, things
Wow, that's nice.
and that's why, like, when we our gods, our lords are all human beings. No one's like from up there and giving us commandments. Everybody's lived this planet, lived this earth, and therefore all these are technologies and techniques that anybody can incorporate into their life to have a more fulfilled life. Because the question is, like, what do you want from life, right? And most people would say happiness, most people would say contentment, most people would say love. And then when you realize all these things are actually within you and not outside of you, then that pursuit becomes different. Yeah.
Yes.